My name is Elaine Porter. I'm 59. Tonight, at a downtown restaurant, my daughter-in-law's mother leaned in and offered to give me $650 a month so my son wouldn't have to worry about me. She called it help. They looked at my bus pass, my worn flats, my sea green cardigan, and concluded that I was a burden wrapped in modesty. Nathan sat rigid. Olivia watched my hands as if I were about to drop the fork. They don't know who I am. What they don't see are the contracts I close, the crews I steady, the payrolls I sign without a tremor. I've never needed display. I wanted peace. I thanked her and set my fork on the linen. Then I asked for one number only they could say, and the room forgot to breathe. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. The candles make small halos in the bowls of the glasses. Water leaves a faint ring on the linen beside Nathan's plate, a moon he tries not to notice. The room carries a low murmur, the kind that pretends to be music. Plates pass in careful arcs. The server aligns a knife with 2 fingers and retreats like a good ghost. Vivian holds her wine as if it were a microphone. Smile soft, vowels softer. Just a little cushion, dear. No one should feel alone. Her bracelet doesn't sing, her words do. Graham nods in a way that suggests signatures appear when he approves of them. Olivia places her napkin in her lap like a pledge. Nathan keeps his back straight, as if posture might fix air. How thoughtful, I say, allowing the syllables to sit. 650, to make things easier. The number settles on the table like a coin still warm from a hand. A droplet of condensation gathers on my glass and begins its slow descent, mapping a path it will take only once. The sound in the room dims by a shade that no one names. Vivian's smile brightens by habit. Just until you find your footing. Family should not have to worry. I set my napkin straighter, a small square aligned to the table's edge. The fork rests where I placed it, silver quiet on white. I look at Vivian with the patience of someone who lets truth seat itself before it speaks. Out of curiosity, I say, what did you contribute to their start? Nive spose mi der. Graham's gaze drops to the linen as if numbers might be stitched there. Olivia reaches for water and finds the ring her glass had left, fitting it exactly. Nathan inhales, then holds it, then lets it go, the way you do when a tide chooses for you. Vivian's tone floats on silk. We believe in kindness. Weddings are expensive. Young couples need a lift. She strokes the sentence with gentle certainty, avoiding the place where the figure waits to be born. Graham adds something about helping where they can, about how stability is a gift. His voice is smooth until it looks for math. The droplet reaches the base of my glass and becomes a perfect circle, darkening the cloth. I touch the rim once, not to move it, only to accept that it exists. The candle flames ask nothing. They just work. I don't say more. I don't say less. I let the question breathe. It is not a net. It is air. Vivian glances at Olivia, then back to me, as if passing a baton no one agreed to carry. We were happy to do our part, she says. We. She stops because the room prefers nouns. Nathan shifts, a small sound in his chair. Mom, may I? The sentence is a bridge he doesn't quite build. Vivian glides over him, velvet intact. We're only trying to help. I lift my water. The glass is cold against my fingers. I taste nothing in particular. Calm is not a flavor, it is a pace. I set the glass down where it was. The ring holds. The server appears as if summoned by gravity, not by us. He refills quietly and vanishes. Somewhere near the bar, a laugh rises, embarrassed to have arrived at the wrong table, and sits down again. Graham clears his throat. He finds the button on his cuff and pretends it needed finding. He adjusts a cuff that was already aligned. He looks at Vivian's hand, then at Olivia, then at nothing. Finally, he looks at me. We helped with the down payment, he says, each word choosing its footing, and the trip. He stops, then continues, smaller. We did what parents do. I hold his eyes. The number, I say, the way you ask for the name of a street you're already standing on, simply to confirm where you are. The number helps me understand. Silence lifts and hovers above the table, a bird that has noticed itself. The candle between us throws a thin band of light across the knife's spine and loses it again. Outside, the rain taps a window and chooses not to insist. Inside, the ring on the linen stays round and honest. Vivian chooses a smile meant for photographs that do not age. She aims it at the table, then at me. This is family, Elaine. We take care of each other. The figure only gives shape to what love already knows. She has said this before, in other rooms, to other people, and it has worked. I wait. Not to win. To finish. Words arrive when given room, and the right ones do not need to be chased. Olivia looks at Nathan, then at me, then at her hands. She folds her fingers together and unfolds them again, like a prayer that forgot the second line. Nathan's jaw loosens and tightens once, the smallest weather system. The droplet starts again, smaller this time, finding a path it does not invent. It joins its own circle as if it had always belonged there. Graham looks up. He meets Vivian's eyes, then his daughter's, and then mine. 48 toward the house, he says, voice even but thinner, 11 for the trip. He exhales. Call it 59. The room does not gasp. It doesn't need to. It adjusts its weight and becomes the place where a number now exists. The candles do their work. They were always going to. Thank you, I say. My voice is the same temperature as the room. I keep my palms open on the linen. I do not move the water glass. I do not move the napkin. I do not move the fork. Vivian lets out a silent breath and reaches for her wine. Not to drink, to hold. She arranges a sentence. We're glad that clarifies. It isn't much, really. The important thing is that everyone feels. She stops because the word she wants is safe and the room prefers true. I allow one heartbeat to pass, then another. The candles breathe with us. The ring does not fade. The air remembers how to carry sound. How thoughtful, I say again. And the echo is not mockery. It's placement. It sets the evening where it belongs. We sit together in what we made. Plates cool by a degree, glass stems remember fingers. The server approaches and asks if we will be having dessert. Vivian nods too quickly. Graham says yes without knowing what he has agreed to. Olivia says nothing and looks at the place where the tablecloth meets the table's edge, a seam that doesn't require her to decide anything. The server leaves a menu we don't open. I close my hand around the thought that the next scene does not belong to them. It belongs to the sentence I carried in with me and the action that knows its job. It will arrive soon enough. I lift my fork and set it down with care, silver on white, the same quiet I began with, the same quiet I will leave in place. The candle throws a small warmth against my wrist. The room remembers how to breathe. When the server returns, the table will know what it is. This moment is a glass ring that does not need to explain itself. The number has given the evening a spine. What follows only has to walk. The fork settles, the room holds. Somewhere in the dark pane of the window, our faces appear faintly inside the city's reflection. Morning already exists beyond the glass, not yet here, not hurried, inevitable. The light will find this table in time. Morning takes its place without asking. A pale stripe of light edges the blinds and lays a quiet rule across the room. I stand at the closet with a warm mug cupped in both hands. On one hanger, a black suit waits with pressed seams and a promise to speak first. Beside it, my sea green cardigan hangs soft and honest. I touch the suit, feel the smooth claim of its fabric, then let the hanger creak as I slide it back. The sound is small and decisive. I lift the cardigan and smooth a sleeve the way you smooth a thought you intend to keep. Shoes on the mat, leather faintly scuffed. The chipped mug at the sink, a hairline crack that never asks for drama. Keys in the bowl where keys go. My company fob on its ring, metal worn where it meets the reader twice a day. The room prefers order. So do I. I do not stage comfort. I keep it working. I know what budgets hide. I know what silence holds. I know what price tags miss. The words move through the air like steam over bread. They make no noise and change everything they touch. The laptop wakes and opens the world I am accountable for. The secure portal blooms into grids and bars and maps with weather on them. The approvals queue sits at the top of the page like a neat stack of promises waiting for a name. These are not lines to rubber stamp. They are people's mornings and vendors' afternoons and a crew lead's sleep. I click into Oregon. Our outbound recovered 2 hours after a winter detour we planned in October. I click into Idaho. A maintenance ticket steps down from flagged to cleared. Wyoming wants a second signature after a contractor misread a spec. I read the notes. I sign because the work is sound and the risk is priced. Power is not thunder. It is a quiet green light that lets someone turn a key without worry. I let the dashboard breathe and watch the line steady. I think about tonight and the room I will enter, as if I were a problem to be simplified. Let them have their theater. The experiment is simple. I will meet their expectations and let truth speak in its own voice. The cardigan remembers my shoulders when I shrug into it. It has crossed winters in boardrooms without needing applause. The fabric falls clean. The cuffs are tidy where the yarn could have given up. Strength can choose understatement. I choose it. The bus pass lies beneath the fob in my bag. Paper against metal. 2 versions of access that have never argued. I slide the pass into my pocket so the edge sits under my palm. The mug is almost empty. I take the last sip because the last sip tastes like intention. I rinse the cup and place it upside down to dry. 1 cloth across the counter. 3 strokes. The day aligns. A message from Nathan arrives. 7:30 at the bellwether. I answer with, "See you there," and a period that is not a door. In the hallway, the air smells like detergent and someone's toast. I lock the door and test the handle because old doors like manners. The stairwell gives back my footsteps without echo. Outside, the morning has the color of a kept promise. A bus glides to a stop, kneels, exhales. I board and nod at the driver who knows this route with his shoulders. I sit by a window that rattles once at the same crack in the street near the bakery. People carry boxes and coffee in their days. I carry a cardigan and a question. The badge reader at the building door thinks twice. I think once. The light clicks green. Inside, the floor hums with the kind of sound that says something is getting done. I scan the dashboard again and send 3 short notes that will make someone's 2 o'clock easier. Then I close the portal. Power I will not perform. On my desk, a photograph of Nathan at 13 holds a grin wide enough to invite rain. He wears a shirt he swore he did not care about, exactly because he cared. Behind the frame is a scribble from a science fair ribbon. I did not frame because the point was not the ribbon. The point was watching him understand that effort builds its own kind of quiet. I check my bag. Card, fob, pen, tissues. The pass rests where it should. The cardigan sleeve catches a modest light that belongs to work, not applause. A question lives under my tongue. It will leave the pocket when the room is ready. Lunch is soup at my desk with bread that gives a clean crack. No one interrupts. I answer 2 calls with the same sentence in 2 different tones. We can meet the window because we moved the work yesterday. The person on the other end thinks I am being kind. I am being accurate. It sounds similar if you do not listen closely. Through the afternoon, the office shapes itself into handoffs and returns. Pallets accept labels. Labels accept destinations. I sign 2 more approvals with a blue pen that lays ink like a line of weather. I put the pen down when it has done enough. Working instruments are allowed to rest. The day begins to slide toward evening without anyone announcing it. Shadows elongate and turn the wall into a gentle graph of the Sunday I shut down the laptop. The small farewell tone sounds like trust. I slip into my coat and hold the bag by the handle that prefers the left hand. In the lobby, the door opens, and the city breathes at me. The bus arrives on time because a person I have never met decided it should. The doors fold open like a measured breath. I climb the steps and nod again at the driver who does his job the way I do mine. No declaration, only execution. On the ride downtown, I watch the city practice balance. A florist sets a bucket of stems on the curb and arranges them by length without looking. A delivery truck noses into a space that did not look possible, then fits because 2 people believed it could. A child tries to persuade his mother that a pastry might be dinner if identified correctly. The mother listens. The child will learn that dessert is better when you have earned it. I do not rehearse the evening. I do not imagine their words in my answers. I carry the question like a coin in my palm and do not close my fist. When the time comes, it will be light enough to lift and heavy enough to land. The bus winds to a stop and releases passengers into a street that has decided to be generous. I step down and adjust the strap on my bag because straps wander when they think you are not paying attention. The bellwether's windows reflect the city and show a pale version of the room I am entering. For a breath, I see my face beside a stranger's coat, and then I see only the stranger's coat because the door swings wide. The host stand chimes with a tone designed to be forgotten. A person in a neat jacket asks if I have a reservation, and I say yes, and give a name that fits the table. The host smiles and gestures toward a path between tables that carry quiet candles. The room smells like butter and something that wants to be time. I walk where I am pointed. The cardigan fits. The fob rests. The pass waits in my pocket like a truth that will become a token one day. Strength can choose understatement. Tonight it will. The experiment is modest and exact. I will appear as expected. I will ask for a number only they can say. I will let the room do the rest. The host moves ahead, a gliding metronome. The stand behind us gives one more chime as if to confirm the hour. The door closes. The murmur of the restaurant finds its pitch. The table waits just ahead, candles steady, linen pressed, and the faintest ring of water on glass where someone laughed a minute ago and forgot to notice the mark. The host leads us past a wall of wine lit from beneath, so the bottles glow like small constellations. Vivian pauses just long enough to approve a framed print by the entrance with 2 fingers on the glass. Tasteful, she says, as if the word were a password that opens any room. Olivia gives me a quick smile that asks permission before it arrives. So glad you could make it, Mrs. Porter. Thank you for having me, I answer, and my voice is the temperature of the room. We take a round table by the window. Rain leaves a faint halo on the glass, a slow wreath that doesn't hurry. The server aligns the last knife with a precise tap. The polished cutlery gives a small ping, a note that returns to silence as if trained. Napkins open and settle on laps. Vivian's posture is perfect, a kind of choreography that says she has owned tables before and intends to own this one. You live alone, don't you, Elaine? She asks, syrup smooth. Do you get by all right on your own? The question is velvet laid over a scale. I place my napkin corner parallel to the table edge. I manage, I say. Her smile takes that word and files it somewhere between capable and incomplete. Graham leans back and takes the room in with a glance that expects agreement. We finally sorted the lake place, he says. The cladding was a disgrace. New windows, new kitchen. We terraced the hill. The drainage is proper now. He prefers nouns that measure ownership. Vivian nods as if the land itself had thanked them. Olivia listens with small, timed nods, learning which details please which parent. The server returns to explain the specials. Vivian orders decisively. Graham asks about a reduction he already knows the answer to. Olivia inquires about a sauce to show interest. Nathan defers to me without looking, then to the table, the way you do when you have learned who holds the menu of expectations. The server leaves. The room exhales 1 degree. I ask the room a smaller question. Do you host often? Big family on your side. Vivian blinks at having to supply a measurement rather than a performance. We do, she says, smoothing the sentence. Board colleagues, old friends. We keep a table open. Family here is just us. Graham picks it up, relieved to be back on the main road. We travel as well. Spring art weeks, 2 cities in 10 days. He smiles at the itinerary. Status loves the schedule it wrote for itself. What do you serve when you host? I say, warm as tea. Something that is yours. Vivian adjusts her bracelet, not to make it speak, but to purchase a second. Poached pears with star anise, she says at last. People talk about them for weeks. Graham praises their wine pairings with a half smile, then inventories fixtures at the lake as if touring us room by room. He names dimensions and materials, and a brand pronounced like a whispered credential. Olivia's eyes move between them, confirming the performance has the right costumes. Nathan's hand goes to the bread and stops. He waits for a signal that never arrives because waiting has become the habit that stands in for choice. He clears his throat once. Mom, may I? Vivian glides over the syllables without turning her head. We're only trying to help, she says, a ribbon tied to a leash. The rain quiets enough to be heard. I let the sound set the timing for my breath. Rooms like this respond to tempo as much as content. Graham gestures with a palm that says, Architect without license. We swap the deck boards for something that respects weather, he says. Marine grade, 30-year warranty. He doesn't see the way the caution in his voice arrives only when warranties do. Olivia leans toward me with careful sincerity. There's a new wing opening at the downtown gallery, she says. We were at the preview. The curator has a touch for balance. Have you been? Not yet, I say. I will. She holds my answer for a second, not sure where to place me if not inside reflected light. She glances to her mother, who offers a soft plan. We should all go together. It would be lovely. Her tone coats the word until it shines. thin as a glaze. Do you prefer small tables or big rooms? I ask Vivian. Small, she says without hesitation. You can hear the quality of a person's day that way. I nod. I also like rooms where you can hear. Nathan looks up for the first time and delays his blink, as if his eyes want proof that the line has a spine. The salads arrive and the server retreats. Graham eats quickly, as men do when they want the first topic to end. Vivian watches hands, not faces, reading what fingers reveal. Olivia's posture is a lesson in posture, excellent and therefore smaller than herself. Nathan takes a bite and sets his fork down exactly, the way a child once did to avoid a scold he did not deserve. You work in operations, Elaine, Vivian says. Patient, careful. That must be very steadying. Her voice makes it sound like a texture rather than a role. It keeps days from unwinding, I say. I leave it there. Control hides in who asks the questions. I will keep asking. When you host, I say, what remains after the guests leave? She tilts her head, surprised at the angle. We tidy, of course. We return things to how they should be. She is talking about silverware, and not. Graham finishes his salad and wipes the edge of his mouth with a folded corner of napkin he never uses for anything else. He names plans for winter, then corrects himself to spring, then says perhaps both. Olivia tries on a different sentence. Something without velvet. Sometimes we cook at your place, she says to Nathan, and then to me, catching herself, at your place. It is a small triangle of words with better geometry than most of what we have heard. Nathan nods, a private yes to something he cannot yet say out loud. The silverware clinks and calms. What do Sundays look like for you? I ask, not as a trap, but as a lens. Vivian's answers come layered. Attendance, hosting, preparation. She loves verbs that dress like nouns. Olivia adds a book club that talks more than it reads. She hears herself and winces. It's more about the conversation, she says, and Olivia the listener notices Olivia the performer and sets her down for a minute. Nathan smiles at her, small, grateful. The server refreshes water. The ring the glass left on the linen grows darker by a whisper. The rain halo on the window holds. Candlelight chooses a face and then another, equal and unafraid. Graham clears his throat and returns to safe ground. The landscaping is finished. Native grasses, proper subsurface. The hill behaves. He likes the sense that land and weather might respect a plan. Vivian nods, pleased to live where gravity says please. Do you find your guests talk more or listen more at your table, I ask. Vivian takes the question as if tasting a new herb. We socialize with people who have something to say, she replies. The answer is polished. I let it rest on its plate. The room lowers a register. Conversations around us retreat to a comfortable blur. The knives align. The napkins hold their corners. The tests have been given and graded in real time. I can feel the room preparing to name its kindness as an asset and its control as a gift. We arrive at the seam where the next thing belongs. I set my fork down, silver on white. The sound is small and complete. Control has hidden in the asking of questions. It will step into the light when a number enters the room. The server approaches with timing that could be called intuition. He asks if everything is to our liking. Vivian says lovely, a word that has earned its fatigue. Graham says yes with the relief of someone who has delivered his list. Olivia says thank you without decoration. Nathan says nothing. The clink of silver fades into a low murmur that covers the room like calm weather. We have reached the close-up the evening ordered. I look at Vivian as if I have remembered something gentle and necessary. My hand makes a small movement on the linen, an invitation disguised as rest. Her attention tips toward me, responsive as a compass to iron. The candles hold steady. The rain holds its wreath. The window reflects our faces in the glass with the city beyond. The table understands its assignment. What happens next will not be rushed or delayed. It will be placed. Vivian lifts her chin the smallest degree, as if adjusting the light. We've been thinking, she says, and her voice arrives cushioned. It would set our minds at ease to give you $650 a month, so Nathan and Olivia won't have to worry. Just a little cushion, dear. The room pulls one stitch tighter. The hum goes quiet by half a shade. The server at the next table pauses before pouring, then continues as if nothing has happened. Candlelight makes patient circles in the bowls of the glasses. A single bead of condensation collects high on my water glass and begins its slow descent, clear and certain, measuring the moment without hurry. 650, to make things easier. I place my fingertips lightly on the linen and feel the cloth accept them. I do not look at Nathan. I do not look at Olivia. I look at the woman who has named her kindness and slid it across the table like a contract without terms. Vivian's smile holds. Just until you find your footing, she adds, as if footing were a thing other people could arrange under you. I see, I say, and let the words be exactly as large as the air will allow. The bead completes a small path and leaves a perfect ring at the base of the glass, a coin of water that belongs to no one and proves the glass was cold. Graham nods, pleased to have participated in a solution he believes is elegant. It's nothing to us, he says, truly. What matters is family peace. The sentence comes dressed in the tone of someone who enjoys the ethics of his own generosity. Olivia's fingers find the edge of her napkin and smooth a corner that does not need smoothing. Her eyes flick once from Vivian to me and back again, a triangle of habits she has decided not to examine yet. Nathan sits very still, as if stillness could take up less space than the sound the number left behind. The server approaches our radius and reads the weather like a pilot. He tops off water and disappears with the unremarkable grace of someone who understands the difference between service and intrusion. The room's music, if it can be called that, recedes until it is only breath and glass and the soft shift of fabric on chairs. We think of it as support, Vivian continues, tone brightening with rehearsal. No one should feel pressed by the ordinary. She gestures with her wrist, not for the bracelet's sake, but because the gesture buys a second in which to place the sentiment where she wants it. I do not ask what ordinary means when spoken from her chair. I do not ask how worry chooses its objects in this room. I let the offer sit at the table like a guest we did not invite and will not feed. Specific sums reveal the story. All they require is a place to rest and the refusal to be hurried away. Thank you, I say, and the words are clean. I understand your concern. The number gives it shape. The second bead begins higher up the glass, taking a sister path, slower, then quicker, then slower again, the way truth finds gravity in conversation. Graham relaxes, mistaking gratitude for acceptance. He straightens the knife nearest his hand by a breath's width, pleased to see things aligned. Vivian leans back slightly, silk catching a warm note from the candle. Her smile suggests the evening can now proceed to pleasantness and dessert. I touch the rim of my glass once with the tip of a finger and feel the cold tell me what it is. Calm is not a performance, it is a pace. I set my hand back on the linen. I keep my posture a promise. You are gracious to take it in the spirit we mean, Vivian says, offering the conclusion, as if the floor appreciates a cue. A cushion keeps life from bruising. She places the word cushion like a throw pillow on a chair that needs a brace, not decoration. I do not argue with pillows. I do not accept chairs that tilt. The second bead reaches the first ring and joins it, darkening the circle, proof that one path can become another without ceremony. We would handle the transfer discreetly, Vivian adds, happy to be practical, no fuss, just a monthly note that we see you. The verb see hangs there, weightless and inaccurate. What she has seen is a cardigan and a bus pass, and a mother who did not arrive with a trumpet. Nathan exhales so quietly the candle does not notice. Olivia keeps her eyes on the plate in a way that tells me she is practicing not moving. Graham folds his napkin once and then decides that is enough. I look at Vivian and let my face be the room where a decision is not required to be announced. I keep one breath, then another. The offer does its work, which is to expose its own design. I see, I repeat, because seeing is both courtesy and confession. It informs without surrender. A table nearby breaks into laughter at a joke that has nothing to do with us. Sound travels to our edge and stops, like a wave reconsidering whether the sand has earned it. The server returns with a small inquiry he keeps invisible. Would we like to see desserts? Not yet, Vivian says. Soon, Graham says. Olivia says nothing. Nathan's hand moves a fraction toward his glass and stops. I turn my wrist so that the candle paints a thin line of light along the inside bone. I let the silence do the remainder of its work. Then I prepare the room to become honest, out of curiosity. The phrase is warm, not sharp. It is an opening, not a trap. It is the kind of question that stands up by itself because it belongs to no one and addresses only the facts. The offer has made a chair for it. Vivian tilts her head, a practiced acknowledgement. Yes, of course, she says, eager to be agreeable before she learns what agreement costs. The condensation bead above my fingers hesitates, gathers, commits. The candle does not waver. The ring on the linen remains perfect. When you helped Nathan and Olivia get started, I ask, what was your contribution? I do not say more. I do not fold the sentence in velvet or lace it with apology. I place it where a menu usually goes, on the table between us, printed clearly, no hidden fees. Graham opens his mouth and closes it, air choosing another lane. Vivian smiles at the question the way a person smiles at a camera set too close. Weddings are expensive, she says. Young couples need encouragement. The verbs are generous. The nouns are conspicuously absent. The number, I say, and make it an offer of my own. Numbers help. The room leans in by a degree no one would measure except those at this table. The bead of water reaches what the first bead made and agrees with it. A chair slides somewhere far off. A fork touches porcelain and stops. A street light outside adds a faint stripe to the window. The city holds. Vivian glances, quick as a blink, to Graham. He looks at Olivia. Olivia looks at Nathan as if remembering that the arrangement of eyes can make a bridge. Nathan holds still. He does not drop his gaze. He does not rush to fill the air. He lets the question face the offer, and the offer face the question, which is the only architecture worth trusting in a room like this. Vivian inhales. We were happy to do our part, she says, training the sentence to behave. Graham touches the edge of his plate with one finger, searching for an anchor that isn't there. The candle keeps its circle of warmth. The ring on the linen does not fade. I breathe once even. I keep my voice. Out of curiosity, I say again, patient, exact. What was the figure? The bead finishes and disappears into the ring, a promise kept by water to cloth. The next part belongs to answers. The room knows it. So do we. Graham clears his throat and looks not at me but at the linen, as if the figure might be sewn there. We helped with the down payment, he says, each word setting its own foot. 48 toward the house, 11 for the trip, call it 59. The sentence lands and stays. The room does not gasp. It adjusts itself by an inch, then holds. Candlelight begins again where it left off. The ring under my water glass keeps its circle without comment. Thank you, I say, and I give the number the dignity of being heard. Then I place my line where it belongs, no louder than a table is wide. That's within the monthly operational range I'm accountable for. I manage multi-state operations. The air changes temperature without changing weight. Somewhere to our left, a fork hesitates above porcelain and then remembers gravity. I leave the silence intact for one careful breath. The room receives it, the candles steady. I take the company card from my bag and set it on the linen, turning it so the edge catches a thread of light. Dinner's on me. The server is near enough to understand the choreography without instruction. I slide the card with 2 fingers. Please put the table on this. He nods, not surprised, not curious, just competent. The machine appears, a bridge between what has happened and what will be remembered. Paper prints, ink dries. Sign here, he says quietly. I sign with the same hand I use when a crew needs to clock in on time the morning after a storm. The pen makes no flourish. The point meets the page, then lifts. The card disappears into a folder that closes with a soft, practical sound. Vivian's smile is intact but unsteadied, a picture with a frame that has begun to lean. That's very generous, she offers, trying to reset the evening by returning us to manners. The word generous looks smaller from where she sits now. Graham folds his napkin in half and then in half again, as if geometry can put the last minute away. Olivia watches my hands and then looks up, and for the first time tonight her face shows something that belongs only to her. Nathan looks at me, and I see the boy who hated to spill, and the man who will learn to carry, both present, neither ashamed. The server removes the check presenter with the card inside and vanishes. The table's center returns to its original contents. Candles, water, a menu no one opens. Noise resumes in the room as a series of gentle proofs that life continues. A chair slides, a laugh finds its level, glass touches glass. I place my napkin beside my plate and smooth it once, not because it needs it, but because a gesture can be an ending when it does not ask for applause. Vivian inhales to speak, but the sentence she had prepared has changed its shoes and refuses to fit. We should... she begins, then abandons the plan. She reaches for something neutral. We must have you to the lake when the season turns. Her voice wears satin with a seam that shows. Graham nods too quickly. Of course, of course. The repetition is a hedge he did not intend to plant. Olivia touches the edge of her plate with one fingertip, then pulls her hand back, as if she has learned in a second what needs permission and what does not. I stand. The chair gives a small sound that feels like a period. Thank you for dinner, I say, because gratitude belongs to the act, not the assumption beneath it. I place a hand lightly on Nathan's shoulder, a map's dot that says you are here, and then remove it. He half rises, then sits, then watches me the way you watch a door you will someday walk through without asking. The room observes without staring. The path to the exit is the same narrow ribbon we took to arrive, only now it feels like something I built instead of borrowed. The server I thanked earlier acknowledges me with a nod that has weight but not ceremony. I pass the wall of wine, the tasteful print Vivian approved with 2 fingers, the host's stand that emits a soft chime exactly when my hand touches the door. The night enters like a kind stranger. The rain is louder than before, not aggressive, just committed. Tires hiss. Umbrellas decide who they belong to. A cab idles with signal on, a small amber promise clicking at a steady rate. The door hushes shut behind me and leaves the restaurant to recast itself without me. I stand under the awning long enough to feel the weather point out the edges of my face. The company card is where it should be. The bag is light, as objects are when they have done their work. Something inside my chest slides into its rightful place with the click of a drawer that has finally stopped sticking. It isn't triumph. Triumph requires an audience. This is a calibration. A valet steps forward and asks if I need a car. I shake my head and tip 2 fingers to the brim of a hat he isn't wearing. He smiles anyway. The idling cab draws up on its own, as if invited by a small law. The driver leans across and opens the door from the inside with the easy generosity of a man who has opened thousands of doors and would open 1,000 more. Evening, ma'am. Going far. Far enough, I say. The seat holds me without question. The door closes with the soft thud that feels like a line breaking where it should. The driver glances into the mirror, not to measure me but to include me in the car's geometry. He signals and pulls into the lane, the cab's tires drawing pale arcs in the wet street that the rain erases almost as soon as they appear. The city's reflections lay long across the asphalt, white and red and something between, like sentences learning to finish themselves. Behind me, a table regains its balance. A number sits where it belongs. An offer has changed shape, and the room will have to decide what to call it now. None of that needs my hand. Truth doesn't need volume, just timing. It arrived on schedule. It left with me. We pass the window, and for a half second the glass turns the restaurant into a small painting with moving people. Vivian's head tilts. Graham's napkin is folded precisely, and will be unfolded later without memory of this moment's geometry. Olivia speaks to Nathan. Her shoulders settle, not in surrender but in adjustment. Nathan listens, and his face suggests he is measuring his own voice against the weather and finding it accurate. The cab moves through a light that turns green exactly when we reach it. The driver hums a tune that could be a tune or could be the car's engine, and either would be fine. Streetlights draw our outline, erase it, draw it again. We cross an intersection where a cyclist chooses the lane and the lane agrees. People wait under overhangs with bags of groceries held in tight grips. Someone laughs too loudly and then doesn't apologize for it. A pedestrian jaywalks with the easy confidence of someone who claims this block as home. I rest my hands on my bag and feel the ridges of the zipper under my fingers. The texture is ordinary and sufficient. We make the long turn by the park, and my window briefly fills with trees that have worn their rain like lacquer. The wipers sweep and return, always to the same edges and never beyond. The driver does not ask questions the car cannot answer. We slow near my block. The meter clicks forward once, then stops, the number small and exact. The driver eases to the curb as if explaining something to the street in a language the street understands. He doesn't turn to look at me when he speaks. He lets the mirror carry it. Everything okay back there? It is, I say. He nods and kills the signal. The cab breathes. I open the door, and the rain leans in like a neighbor. The cold is honest. The pavement speaks in the quiet vocabulary of water, finding its way to where water lives. As I step out, the sound of the restaurant door opening behind me reaches my ear, thin and final. It closes again. The cab pulls away with a soft drawl of tires. The drizzle takes up the rest of the sentence. The night accepts the new shape of the story and moves on. The tire hiss lengthens into the street's low chorus as the cab merges. I stand for one heartbeat under the awning to borrow its brief roof. Then I walk. The card has done its work. The line has done its work. The only thing left is the air, which is clean. The door to my building waits, and does not need to be asked twice. The city gives me back to my floor. The hall gives me back to my door. The key turns. A lock chooses yes. The hinge completes the transition with a quiet closing, and the room receives me without questions. The cab is warm without trying. The vents breathe a faint vanilla that could be the car or the street. The driver checks the mirror once and arranges his hands at 10 and 2 like a man who has made peace with repetition. "You look lighter," he says, and it isn't a question. It's weather. "Maybe I am," I answer. The wipers trace the windshield in a rhythm that refuses to hurry. Sweep. Return. Sweep. Return. The dashboard glows a low amber, instruments resting where they belong. Outside, the city smears into soft strips of white and red as we pass storefronts that have learned how to be lanterns for each other. We take the turn by the park. The trees wear their rain-like polish. A jogger in a hooded jacket moves through the frame and is gone. The driver hums 3 notes of something that might be a song, or might be what engines sing when no one asks them to perform. He glances back again. "Rough evening or right one?" "Right one," I say. He nods slowly, like a craftsman approving a clean edge. We stop at a light. Water rehearses on the roof, the quiet shuffle of a stagehand. A cyclist pulls up on our right, 1 foot down, the other walking the pedal backward. A bus exhales a street full of people and takes on a smaller breath of new ones. A child skips, realizes skipping disrespects puddles, and walks with deliberation through the next one. The light turns. We move. He says he sees all kinds. The loud ones. The ones with new watches they can't stop looking at. The people who love the mirror more than they love the road. He lets the list end there. People who brag leave heaviest, he adds, and the line settles between us like a folded coat we both agree to share. Noise proves nothing, steadiness does. The sentence warms in the car for the length of 2 city blocks. The driver doesn't reply, not because he has nothing to say, but because the air has what it needs. We pass a corner store where someone stacks oranges into a pyramid that believes in gravity. A teenager holds the door for an older man carrying a toolbox. Neither thanks the other aloud, both are satisfied. The river appears between buildings like a thought too large to hide and then disappears again. He asks if the heat is all right. It is, I say, and I mean the car and the evening and the calibration that happens when a room returns itself to you. He tells me his shift began before sunset and will end after the last train, that the city is better company when it rains because people decide faster and argue less. He says he has watched men propose in this back seat and watched women end things in precisely the same spot. Cars become confessionals, he says, then smiles at the mirror. You sit there long enough, you learn which truths ride quiet. We glide through a yellow that wants to be red, and both of us pretend it has not made up its mind. I watch the reflections of streetlights slide over the hood like brief explanations. The meter clicks forward, an honest little ladder that never rushes and never apologizes. I am grateful for honest ladders. We cross an intersection where a violinist plays under scaffolding, notes silver and deliberate. People do not stop, but their heads turn half an inch as they pass. Attention has a currency that does not spend easily at night. Still, it shows up when art insists politely. The driver taps the wheel once, agreeing with the idea of melody. He doesn't ask what happened at dinner. He doesn't need the story to drive. The cab's interior holds its own quiet. The vents keep breathing. The wipers keep time. I let the city do what it does best. Carry people who can't quite carry themselves yet, and return the ones who can. We take a right onto my block. The bakery is dark now, racks empty, the glass reflecting only the street. A dog pulls a human toward a lamppost with the authority of someone who knows where the news lives. The human obeys and pretends it was his plan. There is a comfort in schedules that belong to someone else. He eases to the curb. The meter beeps. The sound is small and bright, like a bird before work. He doesn't turn around when he speaks. That kind of quiet looks good on you, he says. Thank you, I say. It took practice. He nods as if practice were his favorite word. I pay. Keep the change, I add, because exactness should be rewarded and generosity should not perform. He takes the card, runs it, returns it with a receipt that will live in my bag until paper stops pretending to matter. He says, take care like a person, who means don't let anyone borrow your stillness. I say you too and open the door. Rain leans in like a neighbor. The cold is honest and fine. I step onto the pavement, and the city continues without making a speech about it. The cab pulls away, tires speaking that soft language of water leaving rubber. I stand for a beat under the awning and then walk to my door. The lock is certain under my hand. The hall greets me by doing nothing but being where it is supposed to be. Inside, I set my bag on the chair and the key on the dish by the door. The room is not waiting for a narrative. It is a room, which is all it needs to be. I put water in the kettle and set it on the burner. The click is a metronome, then a flame. The window shows the city as a smear of moving light, but the glass holds my reflection more firmly than it did at the restaurant. I meet my own eyes for the length of one breath, and then look away because I do not need permission from mirrors. The kettle begins its low promise. I take a cup from the shelf and warm it under the tap because small kindnesses make heat behave better. I place a saucer on the counter, not because it is necessary, but because order volunteers when asked. The kettle climbs to its single clear note and lets it ring. I turn the burner off. The sound falls into the room and disappears, as if it had somewhere to be. Tea steeps. The apartment holds quiet like a muscle that remembers exercise. I lean against the counter and let the warmth live where it chooses. The city is out there doing its wet arithmetic. In here, numbers do not need to move. Dignity breathes better without an audience. I take the first sip without looking at the time. In the other room, the clock I rarely notice remembers its job. The cup cools by a degree and finds its comfort. I set it down and listen to nothing in particular. The meter beep is still in my ear, a small, honest sound that means the work is counted, the ride is over, the driver is free to go. The kettle clicks as metal changes its mind about heat. Morning waits behind the wall, already on its way. I do not rush to meet it. I let it walk. Morning opens like a quiet hand across the table, laying a narrow stripe of light along the chipped mug. The crack in the glaze turns gold for a minute before it goes back to being a crack. Steam lifts and folds. I set a pen parallel to the notepad, point east, as if a tidy compass could keep the room in one piece. An envelope sits beside the pad, unopened, soft at one corner from having been moved but not read. The phone buzzes against the wood. A small, earnest sound. Nathan. I let it ring twice so my breath can meet itself, then answer. His voice arrives raw around the edges, the way fabric frays when you have handled it too long. Mom. The word finds its chair. He doesn't rush to fill the room. I let the silence have its portion, because the next sentences will be carrying weight and deserve a clear floor. About last night, he says. A swallow. Then, like a proof he has rehearsed and doesn't want to perform, I was small. I see it. The steam from the mug lifts once and vanishes, as if the air made a decision and kept it. I don't hand him a softer line. I don't interrupt to ease the angle. He needs to stand where he is and name the map under his feet. He inhales and tries again. After you left, they started explaining that it was kindness, that it was practical. He breathes through his nose, the kind of exhale a person uses when they decide to carry something instead of throwing it. I told them to stop. I told them they didn't know what they were talking about. I told them they don't get to measure you by what you don't show. The sunstripe crawls over the mug's handle and reaches the saucer, a slow crawl that doesn't ask to be admired. I touch the envelope's corner and feel the paper's temper, the way some paper holds ink and some holds opinions. Nathan keeps going, voice steadier now that he has crossed the first bridge. I told Olivia I failed by keeping still in the wrong room. I wanted everyone to be fine, and I confused quiet with decent. My hand finds the mug and I hold the heat without flinching until my palm tells me to put it down. What did they say? I ask, the question small and upright. Vivian called me emotional, he says, and the word lands without echo. Graham changed the subject to next season, as if a calendar can solve character. Nathan's breath finds even ground. Olivia listened. Then she cried, not to erase anything, but because she recognized it. He pauses, then adds the part he isn't proud of. I almost apologized to make the room settle. I didn't. I let the discomfort do its job. I move the pen a millimeter so the clip doesn't glare in the light. The notepad waits patiently. I say his name so he knows I am with him. He answers the roll call with a smaller, steadier breath. I told them no more offers, he says. If they want a relationship with us, it will be built, not bought. If they want to help, they can ask first and listen to the answer. He leaves a space and fills it with the thing that belongs. I told them I was done renting my opinion. The mug cools a degree. The steam thins into a memory. I take a sip and the heat is right where a body likes it, alive but not scalding. I love you, I say, and keep my voice quiet enough to hear back what I just said. Don't say it for comfort, live it. I let the line land and stop. Half a beat. He hears the instruction inside the sentence and does not try to barter with it. I will, he says. It is not an oath, not a lyric. It is a schedule. He tells me he called Olivia after they left and told her the frame is wrong. That he wants a marriage, not a fellowship with commentary. That he loves her voice when it's actually hers. That he's learning to tell the difference between velvet and respect. That he is not asking her to pick him over them, but to choose herself with him, and to let love be nouns and verbs, not only adjectives. I say nothing because the room is already improving the air. What do you need from me today, I ask, because love without a list of chores is a wish. He doesn't hesitate. Permission to do, not to explain. We'll come Sunday. We'll bring groceries. We'll put the phones in a bowl by the door and I will not reach for mine. I let a small smile show up without telling it what expression to wear. Good, I say. Bring bread that sings when you cut it. He laughs. A light sound that didn't know it was allowed to exist this morning. And soup bones, he adds. Like a man who has begun to understand slow solutions. He tries to apologize again because that is what sons do when they are caught between repair and ritual. I steer him gently to the other lane. Use that energy for change, I say. Replace sorry with a habit. Choose one thing today and do it twice, once for practice and once for proof. He repeats the instruction, as if he plans to write it down and tape it to his desk. He updates me on the where and when without specifics that would turn into boasting later. He says Olivia wants to come by before Sunday, just the two of us, because she says she has unlearning to do and would rather not perform it. He waits for me to bless or refuse the plan. The envelope on the table whispers paper noises to no one. I set a fingertip on the flap and feel it give a little. Yes, I say, I'll put the kettle on. He laughs again, a shade darker, like wood deepening in oil. Thank you. The clock in the other room performs its small honesty. He says he has to get to a meeting at the yard and that he will be at my door at 6 on Sunday with a list and a second pair of hands. I tell him a list is welcome, hands more so. He says he loves me. I let the words have their weight before I answer with the same and hang the instruction back on the hook. Live it. He doesn't flinch from the repetition. I will. We let the call end where it should, not because we are finished, but because conversations deserve an edge. The room regains its default size. The sunstripe moves off the mug and takes its light to the table, a thin band across wood. The mug's heat has settled into the kind of warmth a hand can hold indefinitely. I place it by the notepad and reach for the envelope. The paper gives with a soft sigh. The flap lifts. I run a nail under the edge because I like clean lines. Inside, a single card. No logo, no flourish. A short sentence written by a hand that hasn't decided whether it trusts itself. I read it once, twice. I do not look for a name because the sentence is already doing the work it came to do. I set the card down between the pen and the pad so that the three make a triangle on the table, simple geometry reminding the room that shape can be a decision. Silence holds, not empty but full. A knock arrives. 3 soft touches, spaced like breath. A person practicing patience on the other side of wood. I look at the card again and then away because the next moment belongs to someone else. Love without change is habit, I say into the room, not for drama, for accuracy. I stand. The chair legs make their small conversation with the floor. I cross to the door and rest my hand on the lock 1 second longer than necessary, letting the cool metal make the case for measured moves. The steam is gone from the cup now. The sunstripe is almost to the edge of the table, 1 last inch before it falls into air. The envelope lies open, a soft mouth that has said enough. 3 knocks, patient as before. I open. The hallway smells faintly of detergent and last night's rain. 3 soft knocks, spaced like someone practicing patience. I open the door. Olivia stands barefaced in an oatmeal sweater, hair pulled back without a plan, a craft-wrapped bouquet in her hands. The paper is tied with twine, the cut stems even, nothing glossy or loud. "Hi," she says, and the word is small on purpose. "May I come in?" I step aside. "Please." She crosses the threshold like a person mindful of where her feet belong. The bouquet rustles, paper makes its dry whisper on my counter. She glances at the room, the chair with its cardigan folded over the back, the notepad squared to the edge of the table, the chipped mug by the sink. "It's peaceful," she says, surprised to hear it aloud. "Thank you," I answer. We stand a breath inside the sound of the apartment, remembering how to be a room. "I'm sorry," she says. "There's no ornament on it." The words are plain. We let 1 second of silence hold them where they belong. She looks down at her hands. "At dinner, I watched your hands like I was waiting for you to drop something." The embarrassment arrives and she does not fight it. I don't want to be that person. I pour water into the kettle and set it on the burner. The click becomes a steady flame. "Sit," I say. She does. The bouquet waits, square against the counter. Olivia slides a nail under the twine and loosens the knot. The paper breathes, then opens with the sigh of something returning to purpose. "No ribbon," she says, almost apologizing. "I wanted to bring something honest. Honest works here," I say. The kettle hums. I set 2 cups on the table, plain ceramic that knows how to be useful. She watches the steam curl and fold. "I learned that voice from my mother," she says. The soft one that covers rules. I don't always notice when it climbs into my throat and starts speaking. She looks up. "Show me how to unlearn it." The request lands. The room changes shape by a measurable inch. "Good," I say. Absolution is a mirror. Practice is a door. She nods like a person writing that down in a place no one else will read. I pour hot water and we wait for tea to do what tea does when left alone. "Start by listening more than you speak," I say. "Measure people without price tags. When kindness comes with a leash, check whose hand holds it." She repeats the phrases, not quickly, tasting each for truth and splinters. "Listen more. Measure without price. Watch the leash." She looks at her cup and then lifts her eyes. "I have been good at answers people like," she says. "Not questions that make rooms honest. Practice," I say. "Try this. When someone performs, don't clap yet. Ask one question that changes the air an inch." She smiles, small and sudden, like a light shaking hands with a coin. I can do that. We sit and let tea cool into itself. The light moves across the table, a pale shape sliding from the vase's empty circle to her wrist. She unwraps the bouquet the rest of the way. "May I put them in water?" she asks. "Please." She finds the glass vase under the sink, fills it halfway, tests the height with the flat of her palm. Stems clink against glass the way truth clicks into place. She sets the vase where the light can make the water look like a small lake. "The flowers look better here," she says. "They look like themselves." Back at the table, she pulls her sleeves down over her hands and tucks her thumbs into the knit, not to hide, to hold. "You didn't perform back there," she says quietly. "You let the room do the math." I'm used to adding flourishes. I stir the tea with a spoon that doesn't mind work. "Some rooms don't need flourishes," I say. "They need facts and time." She breathes out, then meets me where the work lives. "Give me a cue to catch myself," she says. "A word, a sound. Zippers," I say. "Hear the zipper when the costume climbs onto your shoulders." She nods, repeats zipper under her breath, trying on the syllables for grip. "And quiet," I add. "Ask whether it's courage or hiding, each time. If it's hiding, stand up. If it's courage, sit and let someone else speak." Her eyes clear with a clean brightness I have not seen on her face. That I can do. We drink. The cups click down in sequence. She looks at my notepad, at the pen laid along its edge. "I made a list," she says, a little self-conscious, and pulls a folded paper from her sweater pocket. "It isn't pretty." "That helps," I say, and she lets out a breath that has been waiting for permission. She opens the paper but doesn't read from it. "I'll start smaller," she says instead. At work, when a client talks in money, I'll ask what problem he wants to solve that money can't speak for. With my mother, when she says help, I'll ask what boundary it sits inside. I nod once. "Good." She touches the rim of her cup and leaves her finger there, learning the line where warmth becomes heat. "I'm not here to be forgiven," she says. "I'm here because I need a plan." "You have one," I say. She nods like a person whose neck has set. "Practice is unforgiving in the right ways," I add. "It tells the truth whether we want it or not." She closes her eyes for one breath and opens them with the same decision behind them. The sunlight moves again, warming the curve of the vase. A petal frees itself and doesn't fall. Olivia watches it almost fall and smiles at the almost. "I used to treat kindness like a currency," she says. "Give it, get things. Or hold it back and watch the rate change." She shakes her head once, surprised at her own sentence. "That's not kindness. That's a market." I let the words sit. She leaves them be. She rises and crosses to the sink, rinses the kettle, wipes a few drops from the counter with the heel of her palm. Her movements are careful without being precious. She returns, measures me with a look that asks nothing and promises everything it can afford. "May I come Sunday?" she says, "not to help, to work." "Bring groceries," I say, "bread that sings when you cut it, bones for soup." She laughs, this time with a note of a person who knows where Sunday keeps its light. Done. She stands to leave, then stops herself and sits back down, because the habit of departing after apology is one she can choose not to feed. A beat. "I'll be clumsy," she says. "I will tell the wrong story in my head and start to perform. I'll need a reminder. I'll look at the bowl by your door and remember to put my phone in it. I'll look at the knife and wait for permission to use it. I'll hear zippers." "Good," I say. Hear them and decide. She reaches for a hug and hesitates, a reflex trained to ask first. I meet her halfway, and the embrace is what it should be. Brief, human, unadorned. She smells like rain that did not brag about arriving. "Thank you," she says, voice steady, "for not auditioning me, for giving me a job instead. Contrition is a verb," I say. She nods. "Then I'll move." At the door, she puts her phone in her pocket and touches it once, not to check it, to tell it can wait. The bouquet in the vase catches the light and tosses it back to the wall in a pale reflection. She notices and smiles without commentary. "Until Sunday," she says. And her sentence holds. "Until Sunday," I answer. The door closes and the apartment recalibrates. The paper from the bouquet rests on the counter, a soft posture of having done its work. I press it into the bin with the heel of my hand and feel it give. 2 cups cool on the table. The light migrates toward evening, patient and exact. I rinse the cups and set them on the rack. The vase stands at attention near the middle of the table, water clear, stems imperfect, and therefore right. By the window, the day loosens its shoulders. The street fills with ordinary errands and a kindness that doesn't need witnesses. The room has learned where to put its quiet. Sunday steps into view from a distance, carrying a brown paper bag and the warm smell of bread that will sing when a knife meets it. The light slides another inch and becomes the light of Sunday afternoon, though the calendar refuses to admit it. The table agrees with both. The dissolve is already happening. Sundays begin with the soft knock that belongs only to us, and the paper bag set gently against the door. I open to parsley and onions, and a loaf tucked in brown paper. Nathan grins without asking if this is a good time. Olivia's sweater sleeves are pushed up, a list folded in half in her hand. They step in and the apartment changes shape to fit 3. A ceramic bowl waits by the door. Nathan is the first to move. He drops his phone in with a small clack, then his wallet. Presence is policy. Olivia follows, setting hers on top like a promise that knows how to stack. Shoes line up, coats find hooks. No speech, only arrangement. The kitchen learns our pattern. Olivia rolls the dish towel through the oven handle and knots it loose so it won't slide. Nathan rests the bread on the board and waits for my nod. He cuts. The crust crackles and the sound says everything bread means to say. Crumbs scatter like punctuation. Olive oil warms in the pot. Onions meet it and release what they've been keeping. The first sigh rises, not loud, just faithful. Carrots join. Celery follows. We don't tell the pot what to become. It decides. Olivia stirs without flourish, knuckles guiding the spoon. Nathan measures salt into his palm and lets it fall in a thin, clean line. We replaced performance with presence. We count moments, not purchases. The montage begins and keeps time without a conductor, a heel of bread rubbed with garlic, a pot lid lifting, steam fogging glasses for a beat and clearing itself. 3 bowls set down in a triangle that feels inevitable, a chair drawn back, a chair pushed in. Nathan brings a small jar of something bright and sets it near the stove. "Taste," he says. Not a pitch, an invitation. Olivia slices apples thin, the blade walking forward in a rhythm that belongs to hands that have stopped proving. The sink runs, the board is wiped. The towel returns to its loop, damp but useful. Week 2 is tomatoes and lemon and a salad that looks like commas where breath should go. Nathan puts the phones in the bowl before he says hello. Olivia watches him and smiles at how quickly a policy becomes a habit. He laughs at himself when he forgets once and goes back to the bowl to correct the mistake. The bowl makes the same clack and approves. Stories arrive in fragments, not speeches. Nathan describes a crew that finished early because coffee and a clear plan met at the same table. He leaves out names and keeps the lesson. Olivia tells us a client tried to buy a shortcut, and she asked what problem the shortcut would solve that honesty didn't. He didn't have one. She sold him time instead. We take a bite and let the story sit where it is most comfortable. Week 3. The oven offers a tray of vegetables browned at the corners, the way good ideas caramelize when they've had enough heat. Olivia plates them without garnish she doesn't mean. Nathan stands behind her and watches, hands on the chair back, not rushing to assist where attention is the real help. He sets the chair when she is ready to sit. She sits. We save the talk about money for when it belongs. Not a performance, a tool check, mortgage, due dates, a number that means breath. Olivia says what the gallery owes and when it pays. Nathan says what the contractor invoiced and what he negotiated in time instead. The amounts sit on the table without needing chairs of their own. He reaches for his pocket by reflex, stops, walks to the door, checks a figure with his phone, returns it to the bowl. The correction takes 2 steps and no apology. The soup simmers low enough to listen. We taste. Not yet, Olivia says, and the pot agrees by tasting like almost. Nathan grinds pepper. I add a splash that isn't in anyone's recipe and watch the surface shift into something that can carry weight. Between Sundays, life behaves like itself. We don't narrate it. We honor it by showing up. The next Sunday, the bread sings again, a different loaf from a different baker that cracks with the same good sound. Nathan rests his palm on the crust to feel heat choosing where to live. Olivia arranges a plate of pears with care, and then removes a sprig of rosemary because it looked like decoration, not flavor. We keep what feeds, we let the rest go. Chores become choreography. Olivia wipes the counter in overlapping circles that leave no streaks. Nathan dries bowls and returns them to the same shelf each time, because respect spends less of tomorrow looking. When he forgets, she points. He grins. The dish towel swaps places with his grin and finds its loop again. We don't say grace, we eat it. Spoons click gently. Bread passes hand to hand. The air smells like something honest. The table is small enough for people to hear one another without effort, and large enough for silence to be comfortable at the corners. Week 5 arrives with barley. The pot asks for patience and receives it. Olivia stirs until the grains stop floating and join the company of the soup. Nathan slices pears barefoot and moves the board closer to the counter's edge because he keeps forgetting he is tall. I sit and watch the kitchen solve itself. There is nothing to correct. The room does the work with them inside it. Nathan begins placing the phones and keys in the bowl every time he enters my door, not just Sundays. On a weekday, he stops by with a bag of apples that still smell like leaves. The bowl welcomes what would have stolen the table's attention and makes a soft clack he has learned to love. Olivia brings a small notepad sometimes. She writes questions, not answers. What did I perform today? What did I practice? Where did I confuse quiet with hiding? Where did I let it be courage? She doesn't read it aloud. I see the way her shoulders settle when the pencil finishes its sentence. The kitchen sounds change with the weeks, so no sound owns the room. A pepper grinder ratchets. A pan accepts oil and then onions and hums, a low content sound. A spoon taps the pot lip in thanks and is set down without clatter. Chairs speak to the floor softly and agree to stay where they are put. Presence multiplies itself. When the doorbell rings, the courier who always picks the wrong floor, Nathan answers, signs, and drops the pen in the bowl without meaning to. The pen makes a new clack and joins the policy. Olivia laughs, surprised by how quickly inanimate things learn rules. We begin to leave leftovers on purpose. A container moves to the refrigerator with tomorrow written on masking tape. Bread ends become croutons for later. The soup cools into something a Monday can be grateful for. The sink handles a small line of dishes and a long line of care. We dry, we stack, we return. At the end of each Sunday, the room looks both used and more itself. The dish towel hangs where it should. The board is clean and dry, a faint constellation of knife marks mapping other meals. The bowls shine their quiet circles. The phone bowl is no longer a symbol. It is furniture with a job. We walk to the door when it's time. Nathan collects his things and looks back at the room, not like a traveler missing a place, but like a person who knows he belongs and will return. Olivia squeezes my hand, grip steady, affection wrung of performance. "See you next week," she says. "Until next week," I answer. They leave and the apartment resettles without sadness. The table holds a faint warmth where the bowls were. The vase on the table catches a last piece of light before evening takes it. I stand by the window and the glass shows me a double exposure, my face over the street's slow traffic, both in motion, neither in charge of the other. Night lifts itself across the block. Lamps wake in other windows like small agreements. I switch off the overhead and let the room breathe at a lower register. My reflection meets my eyes long enough to confirm I am exactly who cooked here and exactly who will wash the last spoon. Then I turn to the desk. The little pool of light waits where it always waits. My finger finds the switch. The click is small and exact, the right size for what comes next. The conference room is small by design. A round table, 4 chairs, a window that looks out over the loading docks and a ribbon of river that lets the city breathe. I set a plate of cookies in the center, the kind that taste like butter instead of opinions. The door opens in pairs. A single mom from invoicing, hair pulled into a practical knot, a new hire from scheduling, notebook already open to a clean page, a shift lead whose badge carries more solved problems than her title admits. They sit with their palms on the table, not to surrender, to build. We start with names, and one sentence each about the moment the day tried to take. The new hire says a vendor called her sweetheart and praised her smile when she asked for a delivery window. The shift lead says the night crew reorganized bins again so the day shift would look slow. The mom says she finds herself apologizing for a 3 o'clock school pickup as if her child were an inconvenience to freight. I listen. The room warms. I pass out note cards. We write lines we can keep. No metaphors, no softeners, just sentences that hold when the floor moves. The new hire chooses, "Please use my name. It's on the email and in my signature." She reads it once like a question, and again like a door. The shift lead writes, "If you move the labels, you move the work." She says it with her hands open on the table and it lands. The mom writes, "I leave at 3 because I promised an 8-year-old I would be there. That promise isn't up for review." Her voice comes out steadier on promised, and steadier still on review. We practice, not louder, cleaner. Posture proves more than pitch. Shoulders back but not rigid. Palms visible. When a laugh arrives to cut the seriousness, we let it. Laughter is a tool if it remembers what it's for. We talk about how to refuse without apology. "Not today. Thursday works. Which do you prefer?" We practice the last phrase until it sounds like a lever anyone can pull. We talk about keys, not the ones that open doors, the other kind, who holds them, who takes them without asking. The new hire says she didn't realize how often she handed over her schedule masquerading as flexibility. The shift lead writes, "Love counts on her napkin," surprised by the sentence appearing on its own. The mom says she needed a room where naming a boundary didn't sound like drama. I point at the light switch. Power isn't always electricity. Sometimes it's permission to flip what everyone assumes must stay on. The hour runs short and elongates. Good rooms do both. We gather the note cards not to keep. Each woman tucks her own into her bag like a tool wrapped in paper. We make planlets instead of plans. The new hire will email the vendor and copy a manager, not to escalate, to teach. The shift lead will leave a clean map of bins taped to the steel with a Sharpie line that means, "Here is how we keep each other's time honest." The mom will ask her lead to move a meeting 20 minutes and will offer to bring the agenda that keeps it mercifully brief. After they leave, the room holds a slight heat. I stack the extra cards. I wipe a small ring from the table with the heel of my hand. Out on the dock, a forklift beeps once and stops. The river carries a barge past like something ancient that learned to be modern. The building hums the note of work done in small, consistent units. At my desk, an envelope waits. Cream paper, no return address. The flap is clean, unsealed. I open it with my fingernail because I prefer neat edges. One card inside, no crest, no flourish. A line written in a hand that wants to be precise. Help without respect is control. I'm learning. The name sits below it, smaller than the sentence. Vivian. I read it once and let it sit on the wood without decorating it with reaction. I read it again and allow what it is to be what it is. Not theater, not a certificate. A sentence that found its own spine and walked here. I don't frame it. I do not tack it to a wall so it can rehearse itself in public. I slide open the file drawer and place the card in a folder labeled with nobody's name, where I keep paper that matters but doesn't need an audience. The drawer closes with the soft slide of something that fits. On the shelf above, a small shadow box catches the lamp's edge. Inside it, a metro token sits under glass, the size of a promise you can carry in a pocket. Beside it, a printed card I cut and set there on purpose. Boundaries make love honest. The words are plain as bread. They don't glow. They don't need to. Afternoon becomes evening without ceremony. I walk the floor once, just to listen. Pallet jacks whisper. Someone coughs, and then apologizes to no one. A pair of temp workers compare recipes in low voices while they tape up a crate bound for a place none of us will see. The shift lead from the session gives me a nod that says the labels stayed where they belonged. I nod back without breaking the quiet. Apprenticeship, after all, is half observation. Back in my office, I shut the door only until it clicks. The lamp spreads a warm circle. I take a scrap of paper and write the day's 3 sentences I want to keep. A vendor agreed to a window because someone didn't accept soon. A mother stopped apologizing to a calendar. A woman practiced using her name as a key. I put the scrap in the drawer with the others. A pile of plain victories grows there, untitled and sufficient. I think of Sundays, the bowl by my door, the bread that cracks when the knife meets it, the way soup prefers low heat and time. I think of Nathan placing his phone in the bowl every time now, even on weekdays, without ceremony. I think of Olivia's question list, the pencil worn down, the zippers she hears and answers with a different choice. None of it asks to be praised. All of it works. The card from Vivian stays in the file, not on the shelf. Learning doesn't need framing. It needs repetition and space to be wrong on the way to right. I will answer her note with behavior, not a letter. The next time we share a room, respect will be the first thing on the table or we will dine elsewhere. The boundary is not a threat. It's a map that prevents getting lost. I power down the screen. The machine glows once, politely, and goes dim. The office makes the soft sounds places make when they trust tomorrow. I take my coat from the back of the chair. Before I leave, I stand a moment with the shadow box. The token sits in its square like a small coin of permission. The printed card does not blink. Boundaries make love honest. The sentence isn't new anymore. It remains necessary. The hallway is quiet enough to hear the carpet. In the elevator, I watch the numbers descend without wishing them faster. Outside, the evening has decided on its temperature. People carry their days home in bags and in eyes. The building breathes behind me. The river keeps its appointment with the dark. Home is what it was, and more so. The bowl by the door receives my phone. The table holds its clean surface. A chair waits to be sat in and will not resent it if I don't. I put a glass of water down and listen to the small sound it makes. The apartment accepts the glass and returns silence. Somewhere, a neighbor laughs. Somewhere else, someone hums off key and means it. I let the day place itself. I don't narrate it. I don't correct it. I don't make it perform. Justice can be gentle and still be final. I think of the note cards in other bags, the sentences riding buses and elevators, the room of Sunday light that teaches without saying it's a class. The shadow box holds steady in its corner. The token doesn't need to move to be transportation. The printed card keeps its plain promise. I stand there until the quiet tells me it has done its job. Then I speak the line I earned and let it land on a held breath. Money rusts. Character endures. I keep what I earned, quiet. The room agrees by doing nothing. The air settles. The walls keep their place. Credits could roll here without anyone needing to clap. The story closes itself with the sound rooms make when they are finally arranged as they should be. Thank you for joining me on this journey. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the playlist now showing on screen.